I love that, just a few minutes after the draft lottery wraps, you've got your mock draft posted on dailyfaceoff.com, the most read story on dailyfaceoff.com yesterday. And so maybe a little bit outside the box here, we'll save the number 2 question for a second, but is there someone else that you view in this 2024 class that you think is ready to step right into the NHL?
Well, from talking to people out in Finland, the one name that kind of kept showing up there was Konsta Helenius. And I have him at number 4 to Columbus. I know maybe higher than a few other people would put him there, but this is someone who put up really good numbers in Liga this year. He was actually, I believe, the 4th highest scoring 17-year-old in that league's history. And some of the guys he's beat out there is impressive, and Barkov's got the number 1 there. But when you look at what he's been able to do this year, he's about to play at the World Championship. He'll become just the 5th player to ever play at the U18s, the U20s, and the World Championship in the same year. There's a reason why he keeps getting these opportunities, because he's so smart. He's not a big 4, he's 5'11", but he's a very good two-way center. He wins most of his battles. I thought he was just okay at the U18s, but we've seen him already play a few games with the men's team and be one of their best players. So I did a deep dive on him today, actually, for dailyfaceoff.com, just went out a few minutes ago. And, again, talking to some people, Olli Jokinen in particular is like, this guy could be in the NHL next year. And we'll see what happens there. I don't know if I'm 100% convinced, but it seems like from a lot of people believe that will happen.
Well, Steven, I played in that Finnish league, and I can tell you there's not a lot of offense to be had. When you create it, you better enjoy it, because that league is very defensive-minded and a very difficult league to score in. So for those of you at home who look at 36 points and might not think that jumps off the table, I'm going to tell you right now, those are big-time numbers for a 17-year-old in a league where they don't like young players. They feel much more comfortable with older players that they know. Coaches get fired on the dime quickly in that league. So just to add a little bit more context to how impressive those numbers really are. So moving along your mock draft and the draft and all these teams, Steven, after Celebrini, okay, what's the next tier of this draft like? How many of these GMs are going to be sitting there in the top 10 thinking we're going to get the next best player in this draft? Because it does seem like it's a little all over the place on who is the next group of 4 or 5 best players.
The read I'm getting is I think a lot of people are really putting Demidov as that number 2. And it really helped that he had a fantastic MHL playoffs in Russia. He was getting 2 points per game. He had to deal with an injury at the end that did knock him out. But if you're the Chicago Blackhawks, I don't know how you would pass up on him. He would be the perfect player to be passing to for Connor Bedard. And, with Bedard, all due respect to Nick Foligno and a couple of the guys he's played with, they don't have the skill to really unlock Connor Bedard's potential. I think Demidov might be that guy who could do that. So for me, again, the term that's been used to describe him often is hero, in the way he just takes over a game. And if you pair him with Bedard, that's going to be an amazing 1-2 duo. I think, the big question was, if the Blackhawks didn't get the second overall pick, could we see a defenseman taken? A lot of names. Levshunov out of Michigan State is a guy that I've fallen in love with. I think he could just be a dominant defenseman in the NHL in a year or two. I think maybe he won't go in the NHL right away. Or if the argument, that he doesn't go in the NHL would be the fact that he's gone from Belarus to the USHL to college in 3 years. And that's a lot of change for someone like that pretty quickly. But I think he's fantastic. You've got Anton Silyev, the 6'7" defenseman, Zane Parekh, the 30 goal scorer in the WHL, Sam Dickinson, the all-around defenseman there. A lot of good blue liners, but if I'm looking at it, Demidov's number 2. I think maybe 3 to about 12 or 13 are very close. But the fact that we didn't really see any change yesterday, I think means that we're not going to see a ton of different variation in it. I wouldn't be shocked if my mock draft was actually very, very accurate come draft day.
Well, that's why we have you here, by the way, is because you're on top of it. But you can kind of see the pieces fall into place, right? Like the Anaheim Ducks picking at 3, as fascinating as it would have been to have them have Macklin Celebrini, you can kind of see, well, what if a team that has a great collection of forwards can add a top flight defenseman at number 3, and then all of a sudden, the Ducks are kind of off to the races. But want to ask you about some of the wild cards. And in fact, I'm going to ask you point blank, who's the bigger wild card in the top 15? Is it Cole Yzerman or is it Trevor Connolly?
It's Trevor Connolly. I think with Cole Eiserman, I still think he's a top 5, top 10 prospect in this draft. I know some people disagree, but I think the way he plays is unbelievable. But then you look at Trevor Connolly, and people will point out and say there's been the off ice issues with him. They've been well reported. I think with him though, it's just tons of skill, top 5, top 10 talent and skill, unbelievable U18 World Championship until he got the penalty that ultimately sunk the Americans, and Canada ended up winning gold there. I think with Connolly, if you took the off-ice stuff, whether it be any of the incidents, and unfortunately it's not one incident, it's multiple. If you take that out of the equation, he's taken early. But there's too many teams that have learned, from the last couple of drafts, whether it be Logan Mailloux, whether it be Mitch Miller, and saying, okay, we got to be careful on these picks here. There's obviously the PR standpoint of it, but there's also just the human element of it. And I've talked to people who think that Connolly is not the guy that he's been fully portrayed as in the media. I guess it's up for the NHL teams to decide. I know some teams are saying we're taking the risk on the skill there because we know the skill's worth it. Other teams are saying we're not touching him whatsoever. So it's Trevor Connolly for sure.
Understand it both ways. I think that significant penalty in the gold medal game certainly didn't help his case.
Steven, Frank, can I ask you about that though, really quick? I know we got to keep moving along.
Yeah, we're running long here, but go ahead.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
All right, Steven. Really appreciate your insight. Fantastic work at the Under-18 Worlds. You've got a whole treasure trove of content coming leading up to the 2024 NHL Draft at the Sphere, June 27th, just about 6 weeks away. Can't wait to see it all come together. Steven, thank you so much. This has been The Next Wave, powered by Booster Juice.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.